This is the wokest government in British history. Foreign Secretary David Lammy faced calls that he lacks the mental capacity to be Foreign Secretary when he called Azerbaijan's genocide against Christians a liberation. But what he did manage to do was hoist the bisexual awareness flag outside the Foreign Office. Forget the war in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine, the US election. Get those bisexual flags up now. Labour's Sadiq Khan ignored calls to put a statue of our late Queen on Trafalgar Square's fourth plinth. Instead, we now have this monstrosity, an installation of the faces of 726 trans, non-binary and gender non-conforming people. But wait for this, because if we zoom in on the faces a little bit, actually, as well, isn't it funny, if you do that, how they all look exactly like men? Anyway, Labour wants to make it easier for people to change gender by dropping the need for trans people to prove that they have lived in their preferred gender for 2 years. That means more men in women's changing rooms. Rachel Reeves now wants to replace every picture in number 11 with a portrait of a woman or a painting done by a woman because she is a woman and she's the first woman to be Chancellor. But she can't tell you what a woman is.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix? But is it transphobic, yes or no?
Look, is it transphobic? Look.
Angela Rayner is absolutely desperate to be a gay icon.
Hi, I'm Angela Rayner with Terence Higgins Trust at London Pride.
So we've got all that going on. Meanwhile, we've had 10,000 people cross the channel since Starmer took office, but he doesn't want to call them illegals.
Child trade that sits beneath irregular migration across Europe.
It's irregular, isn't it? We've got a Home Secretary who says refugees are welcome. Labour has a Secretary of State for Business and Trade that thinks working from the office is so old-fashioned. He wants to end, are you ready for this? The culture of presenteeism, all right? We've got an energy minister who does stuff like this.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
And just to bring us full circle, we've got a Foreign Secretary who thinks that climate change is a bigger threat than terrorism.
The threat may not feel as urgent as a terrorist or an imperialist autocrat, but it is more fundamental. It is systemic, it's pervasive, and accelerating towards us at pace.
Honestly, I mean, we are probably just about 3 months away from Sir Keir Starmer standing outside Downing Street, cancelling Christmas and wishing us all a very happy Winterval, aren't we? Let's get the thoughts of my panel. It's political editor at the Daily Express, Sam Lister, Conservative peer Lord Bailey, and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Sam, have we got the wokest government in British history here now?
Well, it's certainly more woke than the last government, isn't it? I think when you look at all that put together there, I think the thing that obviously strikes me is what goes to the very heart of it is what is a woman, and Labour cannot answer that. And I think when you look at the Rachel Reeves side of it, I think when she really struggled to answer that question, but then she is talking about putting up paintings by a woman or of women, and you can't answer that fundamental question, I think that is a serious thing. And I think with David Lammy, I just think, you know, the Union Jack used to unite the country, but now we have all these flags that divide the country. It's all about parcelling us off into little groups of people, and that is not the way I really think the country wants to be.
Well, David Lammy's primary job is to be Foreign Secretary. He clearly has absolutely no grasp on world affairs whatsoever, as evidenced yet again by his kind of appalling lack of judgment when it came to Azerbaijan and the Armenian Christians today. But he has got the capacity to hoist a load of bisexual awareness flags outside the Foreign Office. I mean, surely his priorities are all wrong.
Listen, the mistake in Armenia is actually very important. We're in this country now, people are talking about two-tier policing, 2 levels of judgment, depending on who you are, if you get roasted in the paper or not, people organising pile-ins because you don't share their politics. There's a large group of Christians in this country, of which I am one. To hear it passed off like that is very, very worrying, very demeaning, actually. He's a Foreign Secretary, should be much more accurate. His statements can start wars. He needs to be aware of that. And he needs to be aware he's not just having a affect on the international stage is affecting people here. And I was so upset by that. That's really upsetting to pass it off in that way. It was a genocide. I'm heartbroken that he said that. That's all I'll say on that. With Rachel Reeves, she rubbishes the whole argument. You can't have it both ways. Either women are important or they're not. You can't pick and choose. If women are so important that they have to be represented in number 11, fine. But then you have to be able to tell people what a woman is. You can't have it both ways. And I think what the problem with politicians pretending to be woke is actually they end up upsetting everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is it, Matthew, isn't it? Labour are fantastic at virtue signalling. They're rubbish at politics.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think we're rubbish at governing. I think we are, where there have been problems about some of the mood music, of the government over the last couple of weeks. I mean, just to address these specifically, I personally am not sure that there's a need to fly the bisexual pride flag. I do think it's right to fly the pride flag once a year. LGBTQ rights around the world are very important. There are countries where, it would be illegal for me to exist. And I think that's that's an important part of the Foreign Office's work. But I'm not sure that it needs to do... the pride flag is inclusive, and that would end that. On Rachel and the female artists, there have been centuries where public buildings have had not a single picture by a woman or of a woman in there. What happens with the government art collection is when you become a minister, you get to choose your art. It's not permanent. She's just making a point. It's interesting. It starts a debate, and there can be other... And in future there'll be different portraits.
Now, why did this is a point? You're entirely correct. It's well within her right to change those paintings over, but it's a nature in work that she's done, and that she felt that she had to make that point. And just to go back to the flags, I'll tell you why the flag shouldn't be flown. It shows two things. Is somebody inside the civil service captured the government? Because these issues are far more prevalent, get far more airtime than, say, race. I'm a person, I might be concerned about race. Why don't we fly my flag? What about the war in Darfur? There's a lot of flags that could be flown there. What about child soldiers? Why aren't we not supporting them? What about the sex grooming gangs that have in the country? If you pick one group, you eliminate many others, and that's what they should be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even call it illegal immigration now, really. It's
irregular immigration, which I did raise this issue with James Cleverly. I did an interview with him yesterday, and he basically said the government was talking nonsense. It's trying to he said it's taking the public for fools. You're rebranding something. You're trying to...
It's not... I mean,
a new name.
Irregular migration is the term that's used internationally. I mean, I think that, it's not Labour trying to respin it. It's what the UN and people use.
He can't go on about how he was the prosecutor. He likes to make himself out like a kind of, goodwill Darth Vader. I was the prosecutor. I was prosecutor.
His dad was a toolmaker.
Well, his dad was a toolmaker, clearly. But then he goes, then he can't go at the same time. Well, I can't see what's illegal and what's not illegal.
The worry with the change in tone for some people will be, why have we changed the words? Because he was using the word illegal months and weeks ago. Is this the prelude?
No, I think they'll use both interchangeably.
Is this the prelude to an amnesty? That's a question.
No, absolutely not.
Were they using irregular during the election?
No,
because it's a sign, isn't it? It's a signal to the public. It was illegal. Then it became irregular once they were in
government. Look, if I was still a spin doctor, as a retired spin doctor, if I was still a spin doctor, I would be saying, keep using illegal. It's ridiculous to switch the terms. If you're using irregular in official document, when you're dealing with the UN, that's slightly different. But in terms of public facing, just on Lammy, I mean, I think Lammy has got to be careful. We saw his rather embarrassing Celebrity Mastermind appearance. I think sometimes he needs to take a breath and just compute. He's a clever guy, but he sometimes, I think, speaks before he thinks.
Take charge of his department. This is not a surprise to us. It's not the first time these things have happened, but that's because he's new. The people underneath him are not.
We also have this idea now as well that we have to ignore the conventional wisdom that bothering to turn up to work or having a shower first thing in the morning and a shave and getting changed...
What do you think about Johnny Reynolds' beard? I think it's very smart.
Getting changed out of your pyjamas and being literally present for work might in some way be a good thing. We're now being asked to believe that we have to cast that aside. Presenteeism is bad, isn't it?
Doesn't mean you don't have a shower.
On that note, can I thank you all for being present tonight?
Well, I was thinking about dialing it in.
Yes, I was quite tempted.
It would have been easier. I'm not... Please don't cast aspersions on whether I would have had a shower. Of course I would have had a shower, Patrick. I always maintain standards at all times. But I think, look, let's be serious. I think I want to be fair to women who have kids and who have caring responsibilities. And I think accommodations can be made in the workplace. And I think if you're looking after elderly parents or young children, and let's be fair, it generally does fall on the woman. I think, if you can find ways in the workplace to make accommodations for that. But if it's just a case of actually, I just prefer working at home, it's just a bit more comfy. I don't really have to put on that tie. I don't have to bother brushing my hair. I don't have to actually make any effort to leave the house. That's a very different thing, isn't it? And actually, I think, certainly for me and my team, I've got a lot of young members of my team, if they were working at home, they would not be able to learn the trade.
That's right.
And I think they actually soak so much up from just sitting in the office with me and other colleagues who have been around a lot longer.
If I was just starting out all over again, and you never know, that might have to happen one day. But if I was
It will when the beers, the working from home protesters.
I would really hope that everybody else in your team was working from home, so that I could come into the office
and shine,
and sit near you all day, and then you get that, and then who's getting promoted first?
Yeah, exactly, always.
But there's deeper things. Firstly, the Labour Party have talked about paying off our debt, covering all manner of social care bills with growth. I'm sorry, no. If you don't come to the office, our productivity will take a dive. We've had a problem with productivity in this country for years. And there's also a class element to this. If you're a brickie, a plumber, a dustman, a security guard, you can't work from home. So what they've done, they've shown everybody that the Labour Party is now the preserve of the middle classes. It's no longer about the working class. Even train drivers are going to have to turn up to work.
Well, every now and again. Just to round us off in this particular segment, we got the Sadiq Khan, obviously Labour, London Mayor. That plinth there was nice and empty, wasn't it? We could have had, I don't know, the Queen, we could have had Prince Philip, we could have had anyone like that.
It is temporary.
No,
but that's why. We've
got 700 and something trans or gender fluid or whatever it is, the mass of people, which when you zoom in, I'm sorry, but the vast majority of them do look exactly.
Well, I think it's a reminder of the violence and challenges that trans people face around the world, and it's there to start a conversation. It's temporary. We've had lots of provocative pieces on the fourth plinth before. I suspect that Sadiq doesn't pick them himself. I'm sure there's a commission of the great and the good who picked them.
I think it was much better under Boris Johnson when we had the big blue cockerel.
Right.
I thought you were going to say something else there for a second. Yes, you were.
I said that.
Actually, Matthew's right. It is temporary, and it would have been very appropriate to have the Queen on there for a time. Her time is past. It would have been a recognition of the work she did for the country, and then we could.
You were in the GLA. You should propose that. I'm sure that would be great.
For a second, Sadiq would take my. There, Sadiq. Sean said that'll be it. That's as far as he would get.
Yeah. But it's just a sign of the only thing that you can really get on there. That kind of thing, isn't it? I find that a bit strange, really, a bit strange. But there we go. Yes, I was asking, of course, whether or not we do have the wokest set of politicians that we've ever had, the wokest government ever. But anyway, moving on from that, a screeching gear change. It's time for the Great British Giveaway.